Hello and welcome. Happy Sunday, everybody. Greetings from me and my pet giraffe, and of course from the world famous Scott Sandlin. So it's great to have everybody here tonight. As usual, on Sunday night, we get together to learn a little bit about hypnosis and to experience hypnosis. And tonight will be no different than our previous nights. And so I have a giraffe, I have a dragon, and I have Scott Sandlin, and I have you guys. And so that's all we need to have an awesome evening. So welcome aboard. It's great to have everybody. And as usual, I'm going to turn this over to Scott while I go type madly in the chat box, which, of course, is right below the video feed. So, Scott, what are we talking about tonight?
Good evening, everybody. Happy Sunday. We're going to talk about two things tonight. The first one we're going to talk about is something that we said we were going to talk about before we had Alan on last week. So 2 weeks ago, we said we wanted to talk about, well, it was asked in the chat room that we talk about future pacing. And so we said 2 weeks ago that we were going to do that. And this week we are going to deliver. So we are going to talk about future pacing. And that's not all. Because when we want to talk about future pacing, we wanted to apply that to something. And so I want to talk about something that an HPTI graduate actually just asked me about on Thursday or Friday of this week, which is work-life balance. You know, being in startup mode and building a private practice and being your own boss and all those things make it very easy to be out of balance and to do too much work or not enough work or, feeling guilty that you're doing one or the other and not knowing what you're doing. And so Richard and I decided that it would be a good idea to utilize future pacing as a way of looking at a successful work-life balance. So those are really the two things we're going to be talking about tonight. I'm excited to do both. And of course, Richard is going to be, as promised, walking us through a future pacing script. So those are the things we're doing. And before we get into any of that, we didn't have class actually last week. So everything I just talked about is back 1 week. So we talked about this 3 weeks ago. Because last week, Richard and I had just finished teaching an addictions class in Newport Beach, which was a lot of fun. It was good to see you in person, Richard. And then you went to Vegas. How was Vegas after I saw you?
Vegas was awesome. John Sorbonne and I recorded Speed Trance 2.0. It was back in 2006. We created the Speed Trance DVD, and that's probably been actually the best-selling hypnosis DVD of all time on the planet Earth. And it was done really badly. I had no technology skills at the time. I had a video camera. We used clamp lamps from Home Depot as our lighting, and we filmed it in a rural Kansas bars. And even though the content superseded all of our technical inadequacies, we've always sort of been self-conscious of it. And also there's been, almost 10 years of new ideas going on here. So John Sorbonne and I met in Vegas this week, and we actually filmed a Speed Trance 2.0. And we filmed nonstop from 10 in the morning to midnight. We got some great video for everybody. And if you want to see the highlights of that, you can go to our new webpage, which profoundly enough is at speedtrance.com, and you can get the free video highlights of it, about 20 minutes of free training. So that is pretty cool. So visit speedtrance.com, and you can see what John and I were up to. In the meantime, speaking of video, all of the video that Scott and I recorded last week in California, I'm now editing that. And so I imagine by tomorrow night, for those of you who either were in the class or signed up ahead of time, you'll have the HD video. And if you don't, well, sign up now. It's not too late, because I'll post the high quality video camera video tomorrow. So there you go.
You answered my next question before I even got a chance to ask it. Awesome.
What was your next question?
It was going to be about the addiction videos and when everyone can expect them.
Yeah, they can expect them by tomorrow night if they're up late. And if you're not up late, then Tuesday morning. So there you go. We can even future pace that. When you go to sleep tonight, knowing that there are just 2 more sleeps between now and Tuesday morning, you'll be able to wake up knowing that you'll have full access to the HD video of Scott Sandlin teaching brilliant stuff, along with his faithful sidekick, Richard Nongard, teaching some stuff also. So there we go. So that's the future pacing for next week. All right, Scott, let's talk about future pacing because there's a couple things going on here. One, there's a chat box below, so you can ask any questions at any time. And above this is actually a script that I posted. So above my video, you can actually click and open up a PDF. It should open in a new tab. And you can actually open up that PDF, and there's a little future pacing script, a basic script, and I'm going to cover it. But Scott, why don't you take a minute and explain what future pacing is, why we use future pacing, and is this something that you consider an essential strategy or just sort of fluff and buff that we could do in hypnosis?
Let me start with that one because it's an essential strategy. I use it with an overwhelming majority of my clients and in an overwhelming majority of my groups. It's just such a fundamental skill that needs to be done right. And one of the things I want to talk about tonight, but I won't get into it yet, is the subtle future pace. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But what is a future pace? Let's start there. Future pacing is explaining what will happen and associating the client into the desired outcome so that they get the emotional impact of the desired outcome. Because as we all know, we are motivated by our emotions and the feelings of success and accomplishment. And the phrase that we like to use a lot, it was worth it. The emotions associated with all those things are powerful. And so if we can associate the client in a hypnotic, let's call it a visualization process, even though I know for a lot of us, we aren't primarily visual. That's okay. You get what I'm saying. In a visualization process where they can go into the future time, having had the success and feeling all those things, the accomplishment, the gratitude, the appreciation, the yada, 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 all the feelings, depending on what you've elicited from the client, that gets them motivated. And that's what we're going after. That gets them motivated. And we take those feelings and then we bring them back into the present. And so doing that with a client who's doubtful if they can do it or not particularly motivated to get it done, those are two opportunities that are really excellent. And that's not an exhaustive list, of course, but those are two of the times where doing a future pace is just plain great. It's a very motivational strategy. It's a very fundamental thing. And I think it's overlooked or overacted by a lot of hypnotists. And so one of the things that Richard and I are going to talk about, one of the things that I want to talk about in this tonight is the subtle future pace. But those are the basics of the future pace, associating the client into the desired outcome to get into the emotional payoffs of having achieved that goal. How often do you use it, Richard?
I use it in every single session with every single client that I ever work with. How's that for essential strategies?
Yeah, I'm pretty close to the same way.
So, I actually typed in the chat box as you were talking the outline that you just said. Now, the cool thing about this is you can always go into our archives and you can always see what we said later on if you want to. But the other cool thing is that while Scott talks, I have the ability to type badly. And so I typed what Scott just said, which is really a real simple 5-step strategy here. Create a resource state. Hypnosis is always a resource state. Amplify, intensify those emotions. Create a future projection. Link it to the now, and then provide an anchor. I mean, that's just a basic strategy. So you can write those down. And,
I didn't even mention add an anchor. That's an extra piece on top of it. That is a wonderful and advised piece. I didn't even mention it. I'm glad you said it.
Sure. Well, even if, you see, that's why we're interchangeable, Scott. You didn't mention it, but I thought you did, so I typed it because I knew that you were going to say that.
That's right.
So there you go.
By the way, do I have a little bit of delay in my video tonight?
Yes, Scott, that's why I used an anchor is because, no, I don't know. There's probably delay everywhere. It's the inner tubes. What you and I are seeing right now is traveling throughout this network of giant tubes across the entire planet Earth. And so it doesn't surprise me if there's a little bit of lag or delay on your end or my end or somebody else's end. And maybe somebody else might find that there's no lag. So if we were listening to Aaron listening to us, we might find that in Kentucky, it sounds exactly like we're both here right now. But if we were talking to, for example, Kelly in Minnesota, maybe she's maybe she's listening to me now and hearing me later.
Listening to you now, hearing you later, and looking forward to hearing me in the future.
Right. Ben says there's a little bit of a delay. Ben may be listening to us from last week for all I know. But the cool thing about the internet is it's kind of like a GPS. It'll always get there eventually.
Yeah, I'm just seeing in my little video below that it looks like I'm slightly delayed. But you know what? Everyone's going to be fine with it. I think at the end of the day, it's going to be the content that everyone's excited about.
Well, you don't seem out of sync to me. So there you go. And you're not sure yet is apparently sure that you are out of sync. So like I said, for some of us, it's probably perfect. For others who use Comcast, it's probably less than perfect. And then there are a few people in awesome places like Korea and New Zealand who have pretty darn good internet.
Yeah, and they're watching us. They already finished the recording because they've got internet so fast.
There you go. Even though we haven't finished recording because this is live, they're actually watching the future like a star. Anyway, all right. So back on track here with what we're doing. Every Sunday night we get together, a time to experience hypnosis and a time to learn about hypnosis. And hopefully by now you've clicked on that PDF link above. And it's just a basic future pacing script. And again, I'm going to reiterate Scott's definition. It's kind of like, here's how I conceptualize future pacing. Everything that exists, take the ceramic dragon, the price tag is still on it, $21.99 on sale at Tuesday morning. Okay, that's where this dragon came from. It was on clearance because apparently there was only one person who wanted a ceramic dragon, and that was me. And
it wasn't me.
It took me a while to get in the store. So this dragon, and let's take this camera, they didn't just materialize, right? They didn't just show up on the planet Earth. They had to be an idea first. Somebody somewhere had to say, you know, I bet if we get a factory somewhere to manufacture ceramic dragons and put it on a wood thing, people are going to buy those like crazy. And so then he had to go to an artist and say, hey, I'm not really good at making ceramic dragons, but do you guys think you can make ceramic dragons for our store? And somebody probably made in China, that's what it says on the bottom, somebody in China says, sure, I'll give you dragons for $2 a pop. And the buyer had to say, okay. And then probably 12 months later, a whole boatload of ceramic dragons showed up at all the Tuesday mornings around the country. Likewise, since my camera is a Canon, people ask me what kind of camera I use. This is an XA10. It's a pretty good camera. Somebody in Japan had to say, you know, I bet we could make a pro level camera, but we could make it a consumer level size. And I bet that would probably sell pretty well. And I bet there's people out there who will buy it. So they had to go to their engineering department and say, how do you make a pro camera, but make it in a consumer size, and, you know, blah, 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 blah. And they did. And now every wedding photographer in the country uses this camera, and it's a great camera. You could actually film like Blair Witch Project or a commercial with it if you wanted to, or a hypnosis training video. The point is, nothing can just be, it always has to be an idea first. Well, hypnosis is a great place to tap into the reservoir of ideas into our subconscious mind. So my clients, they come to me and they don't know, for example, that they can be happy. They say, I've been depressed my whole life. I cannot be happy. In hypnosis, so we can tap into those unconscious resource states of hypnosis, and we can actually either revivify previous happiness. And if we can revivify that, then we know that we have at least the capacity to be happy, because if you're revivifying it, you're actually happy right now. And or we can actually create, what would happiness be like? And we can create that right here and right now. Well, if we create that in our office, this is the cool thing about sports hypnosis, we can actually take it out onto the field or into real life with us. So if a golfer in golf hypnosis can create the perfect swing in their subconscious mind in our office, they can actually take that perfect swing to the actual golf course in the future. And so future pacing is a way of taking what the mind is doing now and bringing it into a process of envisioning the future so that we can actually manifest success, abundance, form, outcomes, you know, whatever word you want to use. And so it's really sort of applied imagination.
So one of the things that I like to do to explain future pacing to my clients is explain how they're using it wrong in their life. where they will rehearse an argument on their way somewhere, or in the shower, they're rehearsing arguments in their mind and they're projecting future outcomes where these witty comebacks and these clever retorts are useful, instead of thinking of situations in their life where they're happy and they don't need those. And there are people who use their car and their shower as sort of argument simulators, and they just use that downtime to stress themselves out and plan a future where they are in arguments with people, and then they start creating resentments towards those people for the crap they just hallucinated. And so when I explain that to clients, they do what you're doing now. They nod. They're like, yeah, I do that all the time. And we say, okay, what if you could do that, but use that resource on purpose and constructively instead of at random and haphazardly? And that, I think, helps resonate with clients quite a bit. And that's what we're talking about and getting our clients engaged in.
Now, these ideas aren't necessarily unique to hypnosis, by the way. In the New Age metaphysical world, the idea of the law of attraction really is an idea that's predicated on the whole premise of future pacing. And so in my own mind right now, law of attraction, if I want to attract love, or I want to attract wealth, or I want to attract, whatever it is that I've defined as something I want to attract, it really is the process of what the mind attends to, it considers, and what it considers, it eventually takes action on. And this can be something positive, or it can actually be something negative. Now, I'm not a firm believer that the law of attraction is a law, and that if you have a negative thought, negative stuff is going to happen to you, or if you have a positive stuff is going to happen to you. But the basic concept of like attracts like. And so when we are using future pacing and we are pacing wonderful stuff, it is likely that wonderful stuff will be the outcome. And if we're future pacing chaos, as Scott just talked about, it's no doubt that chaos ensues.
And like you said, it's not necessarily about a metaphysical law as much as it is our mindset helps generate, in a really measurable way, those outcomes. It's not that if I imagine people being happy with me, that makes people happy with me. If I imagine people being happy with me, that tends to make me happy with them, and then they respond in turn. So there's a lot of it that's really, gross big picture, where the future pacing that you are working on your head helps drive you in the direction of those goals. And so, when you talk about law of attraction stuff, they always talk about the idea that you need massive action, and where the massive action comes from is the motivation. Where the motivation comes from is the emotion. And so going back to one of the things where you're talking about a vision board, you talked about that, 2 weeks ago, you were talking about a vision board. You talk about people who write down their goals. You talk about people who write those checks to themselves. All of those are variations of the future pace, or things to inspire a future pace. Because once you start imagining, hallucinating, and predicting what it's going to feel like in a way that drives you to take action, the odds of you succeeding go up exponentially over sitting on the couch just, saying why you could never get there.
All right, now let's make this real. We've been pontificating a lot.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the script, okay? And I'm going to go through the script as if we're all going through hypnosis, because, hey, why not? Free hypnosis. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about something completely unrelated. And then we're going to come back, and you're going to close this with a future pacing session. How's that sound, Scott?
Sounds good.
That way we can make this real. All right. By now you've hopefully opened up that PDF that has a script. And the script is titled Basic Future Pacing. And it's hold on just a minute. Unfortunately, I'm not using a mouse. I'm one of these people who can't live without a mouse. And I'm not using one today. I'm using my fingers on a touchpad, and that's awful. All right. So the script is real simple. Imagine yourself as you know you can be in a day, a week, or even a month from now, continuing to blank. So this script is filled with blanks. So you can fill in the blanks with whatever's appropriate for you and your client. So I don't know. I probably guess I want to come up with a hypothetical here. And most people have as a goal being in private practice and successful in private practice, right? You were going to talk about, work, life, balance and that kind of stuff. So we'll imagine that everybody here has come to us for hypnosis today to feel a sense of balance, because a sense of balance feels awesome. Have you ever balanced anything like a dragon, for example, on the back of your hand? It just feels awesome when there's perfect balance there. For some reason, I'm using this dragon as if it's a puppet, and it's not. So that's how I'm going to fill in a script, but it could just be anything. Okay, so let's just go through the script here, and you can keep your eyes open, focusing on the script that you've opened up. But yet, because you're focusing on the words, you can easily find yourself entering into a trance state, paying attention carefully to each and every word that I'm using. And so you can imagine yourself as you can be. That's a suggestion, by the way, a direct suggestion. In a day, a week, or even a month from now, continuing to have balance in your work and real life. Because you've taken a minute to experience hypnosis, it feels good to be centered or balanced or relaxed right now, doesn't it? And of course, to also know that this centered or balanced or relaxed state isn't something that I've created or done to you in hypnosis, but rather something that you've created by coming here today to this Sunday live class where we learn new things. And so you'll know how wonderful it will feel tomorrow when you can continue to feel balance, and how good it will be in a week when you implement the strategies that Scott's going to talk about or share with us. It can really help you to maintain that in every aspect of life. In fact, it doesn't matter if it is in and out of days and weeks that become years, because you will always have this new ability, the ability to create centered, balanced, healthy living. We know this to be true because you've done it right here, right now in a trance state, while focusing on the script that I've written. And so see yourself far into the future, looking back over time, knowing with full confidence that this is a new chapter of your life that you're stepping into right now. And by setting aside this time to create with your mind, it'll be easy to move into success. And so here's the anchor that isn't part of the script that you could easily add. And so anytime in the next day or two or three, or week or two or three, or even over the next month or two or three, or even in the next year or two or three, anytime you find yourself experiencing a sense of overwhelm, you can sit in a chair, you can take in a breath with or without this recording, with or without a hypnotist. You can breathe in calm and exhale chaos. And just allow yourself to create that same centered state then that you've created right here and right now. It feels wonderful to do that, doesn't it? And to know that what you've accomplished today is something you get to take with me from my office. You can't take the giraffe. You can't have the dragon. But you can take this newfound ability with you and use it anytime you want to, the next week or two, or month or two, or even year or two. And so if your eyes are closed, open your eyes now, feeling fantastic. And if your eyes are just fixated on that PDF, glance up and away from the PDF, sort of a mental saltine, taking in a breath and noticing how wonderful it feels to have future-paced a little bit of awesomeness. So feel free to adapt that script. Feel free to fix the typos. Feel free to do whatever you want to with it, because it really is a sort of a great fill-in-the-blank template for a basic future pacing. Now, it's almost probably similar, I think, Scott, to what you referred to as a subtle future pacing.
Yeah. So the subtle future pacing. Well, first let me say the overt future pacing that I think some hypnotists, especially new hypnotists, get heavy-handed with, where they they want to dress up the future as this amazing, uh, unbelievable thing, right? They go too far, and they'll say, "I want you to imagine yourself 6 months from now, $10 million richer, you know, riding around on the little boat in the swimming pool of your big boat," and they go so far, and they're talking to somebody who lives under a bridge, right? And it goes so far that there's a disconnect. And I think that there's real nice subtle future paces where that you could break it out and make it smaller, more believable, process oriented pieces that you can even do during a pre-talk, where you can conversationally be talking about look, you're going to come in here, you and I are going to do 2 to 5 sessions, and somewhere along the way, you're just going to feel it click. And when it clicks, that's really when we're going to hit the momentum. Some people feel that in the first session, some people feel in the second. That's fine. But what I want you to recognize is as we do that, we're going to get this really great momentum. And when you feel that, you're going to know it's working. Now that's a future pace. I just told somebody what to expect to happen and what it's going to be like. And it's an implied suggestion. It's all those things, but it wasn't hypnosis. And then you go on and do an overt future pacing later. So that's that piece. And I think just as a sort of planting a seed for everyone to think about how much more subtly you can do your future pacing. An easy example is when you're talking to people pre-surgically. Don't tell them, look, you're going to get through surgery, you're going to feel good, and then you're going to do these, the recovery process. Imply it. You say, look, a couple days after your surgery, you're going to feel good enough to come back into my office and you're going to be rested. Right? So there's an implied future pace in there that they made it through surgery and survived, and that they're already feeling better enough to be out around town. So I think there's ways to kind of just be a little bit more graceful with those future paces in some moments, just something as a food for thought. But the more overt future pace, I think, is what I'm about to do next in my process. So something that absolutely we should use. Go ahead if you were going to say something.
Well, before we do that, let's talk a little bit about sort of that work-life balance.
Yeah.
What are some strategies here? What's the issue?
So to me, the way to look at work-life balance. First, anybody who's really successful is not balanced, right? They're not 50-50 equal distribution of resources. They're more heavily weighted towards one thing that's the priority, or two things that's the priority. That's okay. But when we're talking about work-life balance, we're talking about the person finding the right balance for them, not necessarily 50-50. And we're just calling it work-life. We're just pretending there's two things. There could be more, but we're pretending it's two. And so helping our clients or our peers to understand that they don't have to have an equal distribution, and they don't have to have the same number of hours or reps or amounts of effort in those things is part of it. But an easy way to look at this, and I think a great way to visualize this is, remember I Love Lucy in the chocolate factory, right? And then the chocolate's coming better, faster and faster, and then she's stuffing it down her blouse and stuffing it in her mouth and throwing it over her shoulder just because things are coming at her so fast she's overwhelmed. I think that's what it feels like when we have a bad work-life balance. But the easy way to imagine this is, instead of having the stuff going by her laterally, imagine it coming towards her, right? I don't know if you can see that with the webcam, sorry, it's kind of close to me. But imagine 2 conveyor belts coming towards you with stuff from your life on them. And it's all good stuff. And if the stuff's coming at you too fast, and you have one bucket to catch everything, okay? And all you have to do is catch it. Now, if the stuff's coming too fast, you're rushing around, you're getting overwhelmed, but if the stuff's coming slow, or maybe even better, it's coming in one space at a time and then the other space, and you're not having to switch back and forth very much, it's very manageable to get a whole lot of stuff in the bucket. And the balance is, how much stuff do you want from conveyor belt A versus conveyor belt B? And this reminds me of something that you and I talked about quite a few years ago, the Dallas Hypnosis Convention. I mentioned when I was building my private practice, and you and I were at very different stages of our career at that point. I was just out of, I was out of startup mode, but I was still, it was still fresh in my mind. And I remember being hungry, literally hungry and metaphorically hungry. And when I was both those things, I remember changing my desktop background to the phrase, "What are you earning right now?" And that's what it said on my desktop. What are you earning right now? And that kept me in the office. And I said, that's one of those things that would keep me in the office for an extra half an hour to an hour. And you said, if that was on my desktop, I would go outside immediately. And so when you look at different motivations, Richard wanted more life right then, and I wanted more work right then. So the same sentence moved us to the other conveyor belt, right? So it's not about one being better or worse or vilifying one. It's about recognizing where your priorities right now are and being okay with it. Mm-hmm. And then figuring out plans so you're not bouncing back and forth and switching really fast, but instead can stick with one bucket for a little while and then consciously move to the other bucket and then the other conveyor belt, and then consciously move the bucket to back and forth mindfully and intentionally with plenty of time. And then you can start in the visualization process I want to guide you through. You'll see how we can play with this scenario. So are there any questions in the chat room about those pieces, by the way?
Yeah, there are actually. Heather asked a great question, which is, can't you model success as balance? I think that sometimes the issue here is what are we defining as success? Good. And I think we define success in different ways at different times as well. Money is one of the ways that we measure success, and I like to measure my success using money because it's an easy way to do that. And so it's a logical way, but it can also become something that misses the point. So in my pocket right now are some dollars. There's $100 bill. Some people would say, "Well, that's pretty successful. It's $100 bill." Somebody else might see the $20 bill and say, "Well, that's not quite as successful, but that seems to be a lot better than the $1 bill." I actually am a big fan of the $1 bill, the $20 bill, and the $100 bill. It does make an easy and convenient way for us to measure success. We have to realize that there are lots of other things that measure success. And probably the number one reason why a song becomes number one isn't because it's so good, but because people actually relate to it. And so that song, Cats in the Cradle, is a great reminder that too many people only measure success in terms of $121 rather than measuring success in any other number of different ways that success can be measured.
And a couple of easy ways to measure: how much money you make, how many books you've read, how many people you've helped, how many places you've visited, how often you're feeling the way you want to feel, how many people like you. Those are all ways that people use, and you don't have to only use one of those, right? But to Heather's point and to yours as well, Richard, you're right. There's a ton of ways to measure success. So modeling success as balance, if you're saying balance is a 50-50 distribution, you could model it that way. But I don't necessarily want Richard's model for success, or he might not want mine or Heather's or Aaron's or whoever else. It's about defining your own and giving yourself permission to change it.
Right. For example, I'll give a practical example. One of the ways that my brother-in-law and sister measure success is by how big and fancy of a house they can own in Oklahoma.
Yep.
One of the ways that I measure success is how small of a house can I rent in Oklahoma and still fit my stuff in it so that I can spend all of my time somewhere else.
Yeah. Another thing that you also, and I've heard you do this, another thing that you use to measure your success is how your kids are doing.
Absolutely. And, I think that's, it's certainly worth talking about. My Stephanie's great to have around because she keeps my stories honest. Since I grew up with Stephanie, and most of you know who Stephanie is. She's the administrator for both HPTI and for ICBCH. And, I didn't have a dad. I didn't have that around. I had her dad around, but it was actually her dad. She just loaned him to me fairly often. And so one of the ways that I've measured success was and still do is what's my relationship with my kids like. And I noticed that the last couple of days I've been back from Las Vegas, but I've been madly trying to edit all of this video, and my kids are lurking around, and they're asking me questions, and I'm telling them they have to leave because I can't pay attention to my edits when I'm hearing them and hearing something else. And so I'm noticing that, like a wallet that's missing $121, as soon as this show is over, Alex and I are going to dinner together tonight. So, because I recognize that that's probably more important to me than selling some videos between now and Tuesday.
So let's apply that to the conveyor belts, right? Go back to that model. You were in California, then you're in Vegas, then you're editing some videos. So your bucket was under the work conveyor belt for a while, and you just left it there and you parked it there for a while. And in 20 minutes, you're going to move that bucket away from that conveyor belt. You're going to move it over to family and life, and you're just going to park it there for a while. And the key is to not do the whole grass is always greener or checking your cell phone when you're, when you should be making eye contact and all those things. And it's mindfulness, right? It's be here now. And as cliche as it is, it's cliche because it's great. And so when we talk about work-life balance, what that requires is structure. It's not going to happen by accident. It has to happen because you make it happen, right? Work fills the vacuums. And so we find ways to move the bucket to the things that we feel emotionally drawn to now, and then give ourselves permission to succeed there in real time.
All right, Scott, every Sunday night we get together, talk about all things hypnosis, learn some things new, get some free resources like that script that I posted above here, or the many other things we've given away over time, but also to experience some hypnosis. So before we run out of time, will you guide us through a future pacing experience tonight, Alex? Scott, whoever you are. See, I've already checked out. I've already future paced dinner with Alex, and I'm done with you, Scott.
Yeah, you're done. That's fine. I don't take it personally.
Which goes back to the measures of success, because you don't have any kids, and these videos are yours too. So there you go. Your income is slashed while I go play with kids also.
That's right. That's right. And you know what? That's fine, because I've got the NBA finals on pause right now. And my wife and I are going to watch the second half and have dinner together. We're going to have spaghetti and meatballs in front of the second half of the NBA finals. And it's going to be a wonderful evening. It sounds, I don't know how that sounds to other people, but to me, that sounds pretty close to heaven.
There are a lot of people in this room I want to thank, because apparently we're competing with the final finale of Game of Thrones, whatever the heck that is. But apparently that's a big deal. And there are lots of people here in the chat room tonight. So thank you for participating, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for not watching a TV show about dragons or watching a whole bunch of millionaires play a game. Thank you for doing that, Richard. That's right.
I've never seen Game of Thrones, so I didn't know it had dragons in it, but it must be kind of the law of attraction. We attracted a dragon to our room.
We might have as much dragon airtime in this episode as any episode of Game of Thrones. Okay, here we go. Let's get into this. Everyone go ahead, get comfortable. If you haven't already done so, close your eyes like Richard has just done. Get comfortable in your chair, and you guys know exactly how you prefer to go into a comfortable state of hypnosis. Over the next few moments and the next few breaths, you'll feel yourself comfortably sink down into the chair and to allow yourself to relax. And as you do so, you'll feel all the distractions of the outside world get less and less important, as the sound of my voice and your own relaxation is all that really matters for right now. And as you continue to relax with that momentum that glides you further and further deeper into your unconscious mind and further away from the outside world, you find that peace, that tranquility, and that calm that comes with this state of mind that you've used in the past to help yourself and others. And what I'd like you to do is just take a moment right now to think about what work-life balance means to you, and just take a moment to just think about what that would be like. Now, maybe you already have quite a bit of that already accomplished, and maybe it's something that you're working towards, and maybe it's something you haven't really been thinking about up until now, and whatever it is, that's okay. because I'd like you to imagine yourself in the future. Now, maybe for you, that future is tomorrow, and maybe for you, that's next month, or maybe it's sometime in between. You don't have to get hung up on exactly when it is, but I'd like you to imagine yourself coming home from work. You're coming home from work, and on the drive, you're turning onto your street or the street of your friend or family member or the place that you're heading. And you're leaving a great day of work. You've helped some people. You've had a wonderful day, and you feel really satisfied by the work you've gotten done. Now, maybe that was returning a lot of phone calls, sending a lot of emails, or whatever it is that applies to your job that can make you feel good. And you can imagine that feeling of, I know I got a lot done today. I got more done today than I used to. No procrastinating, no delaying. I accomplished a lot. And with that feeling of confidence, with that feeling of satisfaction, you feel yourself pull up to the parking space. And as you get out of the car, you see the face of a person you like. Now, maybe that's a family member. Maybe it's a friend. Maybe it's a neighbor or a fellow student. Whoever it is that in your life it's appropriate to see that person and realize you've just switched gears. You've just switched gears, and as soon as you see that person, you feel a complete shift in where that bucket is. That bucket of your awareness has moved to the other conveyor belt, and you are just going to absorb and take in everything from this part of who you are, from this part of your life. And you're not going to miss a thing on this side, because you know the other conveyor belt can be slowed way, way, way down now. And this one can get more quality, more good. And you get the good feelings from both conveyor belts. And in one, there's a sense of power or satisfaction or earning or achievement or support or helping. And in this one, there's this feeling of just getting so much back. This feeling of being loved and respected and liked. And these deep parts of who you are that aren't on display at the other part of your life. You get to display this honesty, this vulnerability, this silliness, and this happiness. You get to display parts of you that aren't appropriate in the other setting. And for that, you feel truly grateful to be able to express yourself totally. And in that moment, they say, how was work? Now, in the past, that might have been a way where you fall into talking in great detail about your day. But you find because you are so locked in to this relationship, you are so locked in to this opportunity to spend time with these people who matter, you realize you can explain it in just a sentence or two. And then quickly you turn it to, tell me more about yours. How was your day? And I don't care if you're talking to a 6-year-old who explains to you about something they colored, or somebody who tells you about a day that didn't go well and the meeting went badly, or anything else. You feel yourself so completely engaged as a witness to their life, and you feel accurately like you are supporting them. And when they finish talking, you see a look of appreciation on their face that you realize you would not have gotten. You would have missed it if you'd been wondering about the other assembly line, but you weren't. You were focused. And that feeling of being good at being that friend, that family member, that peer, that spouse. You feel yourself succeeding in that. In just the same way you succeeded at work today, you succeeded at home, or you succeeded with your friend. You succeeded in both arenas by being completely present in both arenas. And you understand that both conveyor belts move at just the right pace, as long as you aren't bouncing back and forth. You find yourself mindfully and intentionally moving from one conveyor belt to the other. And as long as you're doing that, you have all the time in the world to get the most you can out of each of those things and to enjoy the process of succeeding as well as the success itself. And so I'm just going to count from 1 to 3. When I get to 3, you're going to open your eyes, bringing with you those feelings of satisfaction, bringing with you those feelings of success, bringing with you those feelings of gratitude, knowing that you were able to focus on each of those things in the time that was appropriate. And because of that, you maximize the opportunities in your life. Not wasting one thinking about the other, but instead succeeding at the task at hand. So I'm going to count from 1 to 3. When I get to 3, you're going to open your eyes, bringing that feeling back in the way that's appropriate for you. 1, 2, and 3. Welcome back. Eyes open all the way back in the chat room, in the video. Hello, everybody, and hello, Richard.
A round of threes in the chat room for Scott. That was awesome. Very good. By the way, I'm really happy with the outcome of my video in Las Vegas with John. So if anybody wants any of the free highlights from, that's about 20 minutes worth of teaching video. If you're interested in instant and rapid induction, if you want people to go into trance in 7 seconds or less, you want to hypnotize anybody anywhere, speedtrance.com is a great resource for you. So there's my commercial. Well, it's cool stuff. I love working with John. John's crazy. The reason why I like working with John is like an 8-year-old kid who just learned hypnosis from the back of a cereal box and doesn't know that you can't hypnotize people, right? So he's just out there and has unstoppable confidence, and it's something I think we could all benefit from. So John's fun to work with. I had a great time.
Cool.
I like working with you too.
Oh, thanks, Richard. I like working with you.
Because in addition to unstoppable confidence, you have very solid clinical skills. So I look forward to finishing up the video tomorrow with our addiction class in California.
Yeah, I watched some of the webcam video, the rough stuff that we already had, and I was really happy with it. So, and those of you who want to watch that, you'll get to see, when Richard gets it finished in the next couple of days, you get to see the new HPTI headquarters and training facility, which is also great.
Very good. All right, every Sunday we get together to do the same thing. Learn about hypnosis, talk about hypnosis, get together, visit, and experience hypnosis. Thank you, Scott, for guiding us through that. Thank you, Dragon, for keeping us from having to watch TV tonight. Thank you, everybody, for participating tonight. And we will see you same time, same channel next week. By the way, just a preview of the summer. We're going to go for a couple more weeks, and then we are going to take a summer break. July and August are 2 things going on. 1, Hypno Thoughts, and 2, lots of people on summer break. So we'll probably take a break for about 6 weeks in July and August, but we'll be around for the next couple of weeks through June, and so we look forward to next week's exciting opportunity in free.
Email us requests, email us topics, and email us guests.
There you go. Email us guests and topics. All right. See you later, guys.
Bye, everybody.